Going into the 2025 college football season, the projected top quarterbacks draft-wise were Arch Manning, Cade Klubnik, Lenoris Sellers, Garrett Nussmeier, and Drew Aller. The Heisman odds reflected the same idea, yet none of these guys have really panned out to their expectations. To find the new Heisman favorite, you have to go down to 24th in the preseason odds. To find the new consensus QB1 in the 2026 NFL Draft, you have to go outside the preseason top 10. Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza has reached heights that nobody really expected. So now it's time to dive into him as an NFL Draft prospect. But before we get into the film, we need to talk about his underdog story and how he got here. Mendoza hails from Miami, where he played his high school ball at Christopher Columbus High School. He ended up as a 2-star composite recruit outside of the top 2,000 in the country. He originally committed to Yale before he flipped his commitment to Cal Berkeley. After redshirting his true freshman season, he threw for 1,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 10 picks. He significantly improved the next season, throwing for 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. That improvement drove him to enter the transfer portal, where he was the 4th best quarterback in the portal, only behind Nico Iamaleava, Carson Beck, and John Mateer. He decided to join Curt Cignetti's Indiana squad, coming off an 11-2 season and a quarterback of a draft pick. And as a redshirt junior, he has developed into the Heisman favorite with over 2,800 total yards, 35 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Now that you get the gist of Fernando Mendoza, let's dive into the film. You know, I would have put some highlights on the TV, but I left my Xbox and my Roku stick. Oh, there he is. Okay, there's a lot to love about Fernando Mendoza, and there's a little bit to be concerned about when it comes to him translating to the NFL. Let's begin in the arm talent section of things, where I'm semi-pleased with him, but my first concern also arises. I'll get into that later though. Talking about his accuracy first, he's been a naturally accurate quarterback over the last 2 seasons, and even with his redshirt freshman season, he mainly had decision-making issues. The accuracy was still there, I would say. At the same time, it's not elite accuracy by any means. I think he could be more dead-on consistently. He does hit the general target most of the time. Sometimes he'll leave it too far out front though, and in the NFL, that pocket for failure becomes smaller and less lenient. But the stats show that he's an accurate passer. Out of all Power 4 quarterbacks with 200 or more dropbacks, he's 4th in completion percentage and 6th in adjusted completion percentage. He's inside the top 10 in short, intermediate, and deep ball completion percentage as well. Then the film backs it up even more. You can kind of see with some of these replays that he's not hitting the keyhole, but he's still consistently placing it in the catch radius of his receiver. Here's one example against Oregon, where he sees his receiver, gets it off before he gets hit, and gets it off accurately. This isn't a mind-blowing pass, I just wanted to show you guys a good pass. It's not the keyhole, but it's in the spot where his receiver can turn upfield and also get some yards after the catch. This is kind of your average Fernando Mendoza completion. Then this touchdown throw against Illinois is not your average Mendoza completion, but it was thrown over 2 defenders into the back of the end zone. I don't know if there was a better spot for this. Maybe just a little more out front, but that's maybe reaching a little bit. He can throw in many different places, and that's one reason why I love Mendoza's accuracy. Then you get to the deep accuracy, which I think is slightly above average for a prospect of his caliber. 20 to 30 yards is great, but past 30 yards could use some tooling. Past 20 yards, he's completed 55.6% of his attempts and is 5th in yards per attempt among Power 4 starters. But he really succeeds with over-the-shoulder tosses, ones that are outside the numbers, like this one against Iowa, where he sees the receiver beat the DB and delivers it in time before the safety gets there. Nice toss outside the numbers, exactly where it needed to be. But inside the numbers, it's not as great. The accuracy going over 30 yards is just inconsistent overall. The arm strength itself is more average. In an era of football where more quarterbacks are throwing 55, 60-yard bombs easily, he doesn't really shine in the deep game. Where he does shine here is the zip that he can put on short and intermediate balls. He delivers those balls with nice velocity. Now, I want to touch on my first lingering negative with Mendoza. His off-platform throws are really just not that great. On the run, off his back foot, stepping up and throwing, he really just struggles to find accuracy when he's not planted and throwing it on a dime. For example, he threw a pick six against Oregon throwing off his back foot. It made sense to make this throw how he did, like fading back, but he just left it really short. If he had thrown with his feet planted like normal, I think he's either hitting this throw or even leaving it long, which that would have been better than throwing this pick six. Back on the positive end of things, I do think Mendoza has pro-ready mechanics. I've already mentioned his zip and his ability to get passes off quickly. His general throwing mechanics, again, when he's set, are very good and mirrors those of good NFL quarterbacks. When he's not under pressure, he does a good job at adjusting arm angles to get around linemen and deliver in those gaps. Under pressure, he's just okay at these adjustments, and we see it a lot with his throws when he's inevitably going to get hit. While we're here talking about arm talent, let me end by saying his timing throws are freaking fantastic. His overall anticipation is great, and when he gets the throw to a first read, he leaves it extremely accurate. I'm excited to see his impact as a second or third and medium kind of guy, between like 4 to 7 yards to go. Alright, I've spent a lot of time talking about arm talent. I think it's above average for Mendoza, but now I'm going to dive into a section that I think is great with Mendoza. Then after that, we're going to talk about the section that I think is not great with Mendoza and actually holds me back on him as a prospect a little bit. So there's no real standout arm talent trait with Mendoza outside of those timing routes, which those can even be noted to be a mental trait. Where the standout comes from, where this hype comes from, is his overall reads and processing capabilities. He is one of the smartest quarterbacks in this class when he's in a clean pocket and running through his progressions. They aren't perfect by any means, and I'll explain why, but his best traits come from this idea. And I actually want to touch on the bad end of things first. His pre-snap reads are up and down, and I really mean up and down. His zone reads are among some of the best I've seen in a quarterback prospect over the last few years. He does a great job diagnosing those soft spots before the snap. That's primarily how he can get these timing passes off so quick and so efficiently. Or honestly, his coverage reads as a whole are fantastic. When facing man coverages, he does a great job identifying whether or not a DB is playing inside or outside. He connects on so many quick slants and 8 to 12 yard out routes because he can see these coverages really well. Here's an example where he finds his guy for a touchdown. He sees the DB is playing with the cushion and leading more inside, which allows the receiver to get out, beat the receiver greatly, and be wide open. Where the pre-snap reads come up short is identifying blitz opportunities. If you watch when Indiana traveled to Iowa City to take on Iowa, the Hawkeyes' defensive game plan was fantastic for two reasons. One I'll dive into in a minute, but the other being that Mendoza struggles to diagnose these blitzes before the snap. There will be a concerning number of times where he will get sacked, or he will make a throw too late, or he will get thrown off his anticipation because of an unexpected blitz. He's got to be better at expecting those. Then we get to his post-snap reads and processes. I want to highlight his processing abilities, him going through his progressions and his routes and finding the open guy. This area is another strength for Mendoza, primarily because he doesn't rush through his progressions, but he also isn't too slow to hit them. Consistently, he's hitting his third or fourth read or hitting the check down when the pressure gets home. He also does a nice job identifying if he needs to scramble or not. His pocket presence is a weakness that I'll dive into in about 10 seconds, but him leaving the pocket to scramble downfield, finding pockets in the second level of defense is something that I'm fond of. But now we get to an entire section of weakness, poise and pocket presence. I am honestly disappointed in this. I never noticed how not great this aspect of his game is until I watched the All-22. I knew of his struggles in diagnosing blitzes before the snap, but I did not know of his struggles in delivering passes under this pressure. This begins with his ability to stand strong in the pocket. He will stand strong on some plays and make some throws through heavy pressure. We see this a lot with guys in his face, and he'll still rip it downfield to his guy. The accuracy is where this fails though. They aren't errant throws all the time, but it feels like he loses his accuracy when the pressure is there. Here's one example where he was nearly picked because he saw pressure in his face. Good read, and he went up to throw, and he stood strong, but he couldn't throw around the pressure. Tough throw to make for anyone really, but he released higher than he typically does instead of just standing strong and going through his normal mechanics. Then on other plays, he will actually drift back in the pocket instead of stepping up. I showed this in that Oregon pick six. It feels routine for him to drift back, and he'll plant and throw, but he can't dodge the pressure forever. Step up, leave the pocket, do something different. And then there's the pocket presence bit of it. What keeps this from not being too bad is that when he actually does maneuver in the pocket, he can move around pretty well. He doesn't run into pressure either. He kind of lets the pressure get to him before a sack may be taken. But that's honestly where this negative comes from. I want to bring the blitzes back up. He fails to diagnose these, and then he doesn't like to move around them. He will take off scrambling sometimes. He will show some promise moving around pressure, but when the blitz comes, he just takes on the blitz and doesn't improvise often. Now the potential is there under pressure. He has made some ridiculous He has made some ridiculous throws all around, even under pressure. It's really the consistency I'm most concerned about. Again, I thought the Iowa game plan was fantastic to throw to different kinds of blitzes and keep him on his toes. And I think that should be the example for other teams coming up. Teams that want to maintain Mendoza as Indiana presumably makes the college football playoff, or even when he gets to the NFL, those teams will send 5- and 6-man blitzes at higher rates than normal. Iowa blitzed more than normal and held Mendoza to a 56% completion percentage and one of his worst, if not his worst, performance of the season. Very briefly, and I mean very briefly, I want to touch on Mendoza's athletic traits because they're not bad, but they're not going to shine in the NFL. But I do think his athleticism is above average at the quarterback position. He can go on design runs. When he leaves the pocket, he can make up some good ground with his legs. His agility is decent for the position. I'm satisfied with his athleticism as he heads to the NFL. I also think his decision making when taking off has improved since he transferred. He slides or dives now, and his vision in the open field has really taken leaps and bounds. I think overall, Indiana has done a fantastic job at molding Mendoza into an NFL prospect. So with that being said, let's conclude our discussion about Fernando Mendoza. I think he has the potential to be the best quarterback in the 2026 NFL Draft once my final rankings come to fruition. But right now, I am a little underwhelmed given that he's probably going to win the Heisman. Not particularly because of Mendoza as a prospect, but because if he's the best quarterback in this class, this could be one of the weaker quarterback classes in recent draft history. Here's my draft graphic for Mendoza this season. I see shades of other pocket passer quarterbacks with solid mobility. Think of your Jared Goffs, Kirk Cousins, Carson Palmers, maybe even your Jacoby Brissett's in his early career. I am going to stick with Jared Goff though. I've seen him more as a pro comp for Mendoza than anyone else. I do think Mendoza could be a top half quarterback in the NFL. I think his poise and pocket presence just need to improve, kind of like CJ Stroud's did right out the gate in year one, something that I was really surprised about. I don't know if he'll be my number one quarterback, but Mendoza pans out as a pro-ready quarterback with the arm talent. The mental traits just need to improve. What do you think of Mendoza? Is he the best quarterback in this upcoming draft? Let me know in the comments below and go vote on my community poll. Thank you for watching my detailed scouting report on Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza.